Hi, my name's Clive Boulton. So I noticed that enterprise software is kind of lagging behind all this sexy stuff we see at Facebook and internet and Google and all these other companies. And I thought it would be kind of interesting to kind of reflect on some of the changes that have come along that haven't impacted enterprise, that have impacted all the other areas. So we're in an ambient era right now at this time, where people are carrying devices around with them, the devices are always on and people are always on. And this era kind of comes up with some new challenges, especially for the enterprise area. We're thrown into things like privacy that we never dealt with before. You go and buy a copy of SAP or Oracle, those applications are 30 years old. They didn't think about privacy back in those days. They ran all on premise. They don't anymore. And so we now need to adapt, and we need, JP Ragaswamy at Salesforce puts it like this, that products need to adapt at the speed defined by customers, otherwise they're going to die. And another kind of tenet that we see in this area is scalability. Enterprise applications now should be able to scale just like LinkedIn or Google or any of these other applications, but they don't. The NSA's kind of figured it out. They've got this huge data center, and they can handle that. Another aspect in the ambient era is the productivity shifts with each era. The devices shift, the tooling shifts. And as we can see from this little slide here, we're actually into a new era right now. When the new era kind of brings all this new stuff with it. One of this, of course, being privacy. And somebody else mentioned about the Easy Pass. Folks driving around New York City and innocently having their Easy Pass readers read. Enterprise software kind of needs to accommodate for these as well. So how does this in fact impact the software developer? Same sort of quotient. But when we look at this, and we look at this in terms of the actual tools you can use to build applications with, we've got some changes that have come along. We've got the NoSQL movement. We started back in the 1970s with NoSQL, and guess what? We're back to NoSQL now, except now we're actually getting into some things like graph databases, where we can actually start building different applications with graphs. And if we take a look at some of the nerds that are actually working in this area, folks like Ryan Dahl from, he actually took the V8 engine that's in the browser of Chrome and actually put this on a server and turned it into Node.js, creating a huge movement for software developers. And when we actually look at these eras, each one of these eras is characterized by tools, new tools that didn't come from the last era, they're new in this era. In this era, we've got JavaScript on the client and JavaScript on the server. Another aspect of privacy is that, guess what? It came from the NSA. The NSA is the only NoSQL company that I know of that's got a cellular security actually on its database. In other words, and if we kind of like take all that in and actually put this into a sort of a looking glass, the way that kids do, and actually imagine what the future may look like instead of looking at the past, then we see something new. And the new things are things like this, that over the last 5 years, what's really increased in value is these things like responsiveness, ad supportiveness, privacy, and so forth. And companies like Facebook and LinkedIn have become adept to putting these in. The enterprise guys haven't done that. So my friend Ward Cunningham, what Ward Cunningham figured out was that if he reached the end of the internet, he got a 404. But if he put a button there that said write, all of a sudden he could extend the internet and he got a wiki. So he created something new out of thinking things differently. Now, these are some folks that are actually been thinking differently. I'm sort of going to skip along these to kind of Go and Dart. These are both from Google. And there's teams at Google actually writing new languages that take advantage of things like multiprocessors. And when you put those multiprocessors, you start to get a new level of responsiveness out of capability in software. So for example, with Dart, we have the speed. And I think in this post-Prism area, we can also do interesting things. We can start to do things like tree shake applications, get rid of all the code they don't need, and actually pass little mini applications around with data. So this, I believe, is going to take us towards the personal cloud era. And if we look at what's going on in the personal cloud era, we're sort of moving towards a content-centric privacy. And Intel and some other companies like Google are working in this area. And if I can give you one takeaway here, please look at the Camley Store project. This is a project it was a 20% project that apparently they've stopped doing at Google, but really they still have some of these going on. And Camley Store is actually as a storage basis where you can actually store your information on your client, in the cloud, on your phone, all sorts of different places. And this, I think, is probably going to provide us the ability to do for what GitHub has done for developers to do for consumers. Thanks.